Item 1. Thank you. Which are introductions. We'll start with the folks in the room and then we'll move to those online. My name is Maria with Petaluma Transit.
My name is Stephanie Britt, SCTA or CPA.
Kathleen Cortez, Human Services, Adult and Aging.
Colin Tomlin, Disability Services and Representative.
Stephen Schmitz, Sonoma County Transit.
Jamie Escobar, Council on Aging.
John Gaffney, Golden Gate Transit.
Chris Barney, SCTA RCPA.
James Cameron with the Sonoma County Transportation Authority Regional Climate Protection Authority.
And Drew Nichols with SCTA or CPA.
All right, let's go ahead and go to the Zoom. And I can't see from here, but we'll start with Charles.
Charles Smith, Sonoma County Transit.
Tobias.
Tobias Weir from the State Council on Developmental Disabilities, North Bay office.
Great. Jan.
Hi, I'm Jan Schiller, and I'm with Sonoma County In-Home Supportive Services and the AFN Committee, Accessible and Fundamental Needs Committee, and I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then we have Yuri. Do you introduce yourself?
I'm Yuri Kozin with the City of Santa Rosa City Bus.
Wonderful, and I think that also means we have a quorum, correct? Yeah. All right. Yes. Let's go ahead and move to item 2, public comment. This is public comment for any items not on the regular agenda, and they can be made in person or via Zoom. See no one in the room. Anyone on Zoom? All right. Moving on to number 3, item number 3, we're going to do the approval of the meeting notes from July 16th. If there are any comments, changes, this would be the time. Okay, I'm seeing none on Zoom or in the room, so move to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay. Great. And all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Awesome. All right, let's move. We're just bopping right along. We're on item number 4, which is SCTA's comprehensive transportation plan update. This is a discussion piece Chris will be presenting from SCTA, RCPA.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. And let me go ahead and get my screen shared here. And I apologize. I know there are a few of you. I think Steven's seen this at least once or twice.
Okay,
But... so hopefully I can, hopefully it's as good as it was before in our replay. So I'm going to be talking about the Sonoma County Transportation Authority Comprehensive Transportation Plan today. So this is a document that we update every 4 or 5 years. It's a guiding document for SCTA that includes a vision and goals that guides our planning at SCTA. We look at different travel trends and gather transportation data as a reference section. And then we include a list of transportation projects and programs that we want to implement over the next 20 to 30 years. So let me try and actually get this in a presentation mode. Yeah, that's a lot better. So today I'm going to be walking through what the comprehensive transportation plan is, why we're updating it now, what we'll be working on as part of this update, and then looking at the schedule as well. So we're looking at wrapping this up by the end of next year, but there are a number of different elements that we'll be working on over that time period. So as I've said before, the CTP provides a long-term vision for Sonoma County and transportation, or for transportation in Sonoma County. Includes a high-level vision and then goals and things we'd like to work on over the next, I guess, 25 years, since we're almost at 2025. The planning horizon for the plan is 2050. It also includes a reference section that includes a lot of information on travel trends, demographics and statistics. So we work pretty closely with the transit providers to gather a lot of transit information and include that in the plan as well. So we use that in our other planning activities. And a lot of other jurisdictions and organizations also refer to the CTP as a source of information and charts and maps and things like that as well. So it's a nice reference document, and things have changed quite a bit since we last updated it. So we want to go ahead and refresh that information. The CTP is also a guiding document for transportation funding and long-term planning in the county. So county plans feed projects and information into a regional plan that's compiled and prepared at the MTC and ABAG level, which governs regional transportation planning funding. So all of these county plans feed into that, both projects, programs, and information. And then we're also required to have an updated policy and planning document to help guide our own transportation programming and funding. So if we don't have that, we're at risk of being ineligible for certain funding programs. So we've prepared a number of plans going back through 2005, 5 different plan updates since then. The last plan was updated in 2021. And as we updated that, a lot of that work was happening during the pandemic. So most of the outreach and engagement was done virtually. Travel patterns were changing quite a bit during that time period, especially on the transit side and the commute side. So, you know, things have changed quite a bit, and we want to make sure we're representing that in our new CTP, which we're shooting to get adopted by the end of 2025. So as I just said, demographic trends and project needs are changing. We're also seeing the community age in Sonoma County. So we've been tracking that over a number of years. The population is also shrinking, so it's no longer growing. So the last 5 years, we've seen decreases in population overall in Sonoma County. So that trend has been continuing since 2017. So want to go ahead and keep that in mind, as especially we're looking at the future, you know, where we're forecasted to be by 2050. We also want to track progress on achieving our vision and goals. So we have some pretty lofty goals that we've set, and we want to see how we're doing, right? We're doing well in some areas and may have room for improvement in others. So one of the things we're working on right now is gathering information and data associated with those goals and preparing a progress report. So we'll be presenting that to our board, and we can bring it back to this group as well. The funding outlook is also changing in Sonoma County. So Measure M is wrapping up and Go Sonoma is coming online. So the way those funds are allocated is different. So we want to make sure we're tracking well with that funding environment. One other thing we'll be preparing as part of this plan is putting together a near-term implementation plan that's not just looking at that longer-term vision, but looking at the next 10 years, looking at funding and actions we can take in the short term to try and make progress on moving the needle on achieving our goals. MTC, our regional partners, are also going to be preparing their next big regional transportation plan starting in 2026. So this is including work really focused on housing, or the regional housing needs assessment, which sets allocations and requirements for local agencies to develop housing in their jurisdictions. So there's a lot of scrutiny on that RENA process. And so the next plan update is going to be a pretty big deal. So we want to make sure we're teed up to help feed that process. And then there are a lot of other planning activities going on around the county, including our own active transportation plan, active transportation work going on at the individual jurisdictions, short-range transit plans, Sonoma Clean Powers looking at transportation needs. So there are a lot of other ongoing and concurrent planning activities that we want to roll in and consider as we're preparing our own plan. So here's a look at some of those plans that are going on. You can see the really high level schedule of the CTP at the top, that red line. So we've been working on that since summer, and we're looking to wrap that up by the end of next year. The active transportation plan that's really focused on bicycle and pedestrian travel is going to be wrapping up next spring. So the drafts for those plans are coming out now. I talked about the community-based transportation plans that we're working on for South Santa Rosa Avenue area and Central Roner Park. So we'll be working on those throughout the rest of this year through the end of next year. The current regional transportation plan, Plan Bay Area, is underway now and wrapping up next winter. And then that next update I mentioned that's going to be including that housing piece is kicking off right after they end in 2026. So the transit integration project, including the mascots effort, has been going on for a number of years now. Mascots is targeted to wrap up next spring. We'll be working on the next SCTA funding program cycle starting next year. And that's really tied pretty closely to that short range implementation plan and looks at funding that SCTA helps program and allocate and where that can be best used to implement projects in Sonoma County. So our projects and programming team is going to be working on that next year, and more information on that will be coming out later this fall. We also have a request for proposals out to develop a travel demand management plan. So that'll be going on for the next year or so. So excited to see that work proceed. And then as part of our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, we have funding to prepare a countywide safe routes to school plan as well. So this is just work that's happening at SCTA and the MTC level. So there are a lot of other local planning efforts that are underway. So this ties pretty closely into our outreach and engagement, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We know people are being asked to weigh in on all of these different plans very often. So we want to make sure our outreach and engagement considers what people have already said. So one of the things we're working on right now is refreshing our outreach. So talking to people about their transportation needs and priorities in Sonoma County. We have some ideas on how we can streamline that and make sure we're not asking the same people the same questions over and over again. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. I mentioned that progress report that we're producing or working on preparing right now that'll provide some quantitative measurement on how we're doing on achieving our goals. We'll also look at the longer term future. So as part of the CTP update, we look at where the population and employment levels are going to be in the future, where people are likely going to live and where they'll likely travel, and how our transportation improvements and programs can help serve those future needs. So we'll be updating that as well. And as I said, things are changing. We're not expecting as much population and employment growth, so that will likely shift things around for that analysis. We'll be updating the reference sections. That's something we do every time around, so that information is useful and not 10 years out of date. So we'll make sure we're revising that. One other big project is updating the project list. So one big piece of the comprehensive transportation plan is to work with local jurisdictions and transit agencies to identify transit needs and transportation project needs. So we're kicking off that project this month, and we'll be working with local agencies, number one, to update the projects that are already in the adopted plan, but then to solicit ideas for new projects as well later this fall. And I already mentioned the short-term implementation as well. So we're going to be looking out to the future, but also looking at the near-term things we can do as well as part of that short-term implementation piece of the plan. So touching on outreach, I already mentioned that we're very aware of potential survey or planning fatigue that may be out there. We really want to make sure that we're reviewing the outreach and engagement that's happened already, and that people are feeling like they're heard, that we're actually listening to what's being said. So we've actually been taking a look at outreach documentation and materials collected as part of a lot of other documents and processes, and have been summarizing common themes that keep coming up. Is safety or transit or bicycle pedestrian access, are those things that are most important. So we are reviewing that and are summarizing that and are making that a focus as part of our engagement. So we want to check in with folks and make sure that those themes are still important. We also want to... Yeah, there we go. A little bit of feedback. We're also going to be doing a few new things to try and reach some new people as part of this engagement effort. We're producing some videos that we'll have up on social media, 2 or 3 minute video blocks that people can view to, number one, see what the CTP is and find out how they can be involved. We'll also be going out to where people are. So instead of just holding meetings here at the SCTA offices or, pretty dry workshops, we're going to be going out to existing events and tabling and talking to people where they are. We'll be using social media, and we also have an updated online survey that's available in Spanish and English on our website now. So we have a QR code in the agenda packet and a link to that as well, if you'd like to help publicize that. And then we'll have a number of traditional workshops and meetings as well. Right now, we're planning a virtual town hall meeting talking about the CTP and how to be involved, scheduled for October 22nd in the evening. So we want to make that interactive as well, have a chance for people to weigh in via, live surveys and stuff like that. So here's a look at some of the major transportation themes we're seeing so far. You can see in the word cloud that maintenance, both transit and road maintenance is very important. Safety is, the #1 thing that we've seen popping up over and over. Transit's very high on the list. The cost of transit and, speed of travel, time's very important, walking, biking. So these are some of the things that we've seen so far. We've reviewed previous CTPs and surveys and polling that we've done. We've looked at the Sonoma County Active Transportation Plan, the Sonoma Clean Power Transportation Needs Assessment, engagement performed as part of the Regional Transportation Plan and MTC, and also their outreach on the Regional Transportation Measure as well. They've done a little bit of polling on that we've looked at. We've looked at past community-based transportation plans, transit integration studies, and general plans and area-specific plans. So we'll continue to do that, in our effort to just try not to keep retreading the same ground over and over again. Here's a link to the survey. So we have that available in English and Spanish now. So, it's really focused on the CTP goals, transportation needs, and, building off of those major themes that we've seen. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And Ross on our team has a really nice flyer as well, so we can provide print flyers. And he's producing poster versions that could be put in buses or bus stops as well. So he's already reached out to a few folks about that. So here's a look at the vision and goals that we set as part of the comprehensive transportation plan. So the vision's very high level and really focused on connecting people and places, right? So improving those connections and accessibility and moving towards a zero emissions transportation network by 2050. There are 4 different goals, again, very high level. The first focused on connections and making sure transportation is reliable, making sure people are safe and the system's well maintained. Goal number 3 is very interesting, and this is one that we set with our board as part of our last update. Previously, they were pretty dry. So they wanted to focus on making sure our transportation system is community oriented, right? Oriented towards people and individual communities, not cars necessarily, and that it's focused on places and people. And then the 4th goal we've been working on for years and years is working towards a zero emissions transportation system here in Sonoma County. So I mentioned that performance or that progress report. So here's a look at some of the quantitative performance measures that we've identified tied to those different goals. So I'll just pull a few of the transit ones out. Transit vehicle revenue hours and ridership are 2 things we've looked at the past. So Adam Garcia on our team, our data analyst, has been pulling most of this information from the National Transit Database, but we'll be reaching out to the transit providers for more information if we can't get what we need there. But yeah, we'll have a presentation with some nice charts and graphs that we're putting together for our board and committees, so we'll be able to present on that later this fall. So here's a look at the schedule. So the first piece is our public outreach and engagement. So we've kicked that off. We're producing materials right now for that process. Our surveys online in English and Spanish. And we're developing an engagement calendar right now, identifying places where we can get out and talk to people. We're scheduling that town hall I mentioned on October 22nd. And then we're looking at rolling out the draft and final plans next fall and winter. That second piece, vision and goals, it's really focused on number one, that progress report that we're working on right now, and updating and collecting that quantitative information, the metrics associated with that. On the technical analysis side, we're updating our tools to look at the future, right? Look at the forecasts, looking at forecasted population and employment and how that could shift travel needs in the future. We'll use our tools to evaluate that and then report on the results next spring and summer. So on the project list side, right now, we're going to be, over the next month or so, we're going to be working with local agencies to update existing projects that are in the plan and see if those should be carried over into the new plan. And then we'll be issuing a call for new projects in October. So we'll be taking that to the transit TAC, to our TAC, and our bicycle and pedestrian committees as well. So everyone's in the loop on that process. I mentioned the SCTA funding program, which is going to be happening. There'll be a call for projects for those near-term fundable projects sometime next year. And then we'll be using that information to develop that 10-year implementation plan. And then on actually producing content for the plan, we're working on that now, but we're looking at having a draft CTP available for review next fall and then a final by next year. So a lot going on. We're really excited about this process, but just wanted to bring an overview to this committee, and we're happy to bring back progress reports and more information as we develop content over the life of the plan. But yeah, happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
I had one question on your list of documents that you look at to review and update the plan. I didn't see the coordinated plan listed, and I'm wondering why. There's a lot of recommendations there for people with disabilities and older adults. And I think there was a huge engagement with Sonoma County for that latest update.
Yeah, that's the regional.
Yeah.
Regional. Okay, yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that and pull major themes out of that. That didn't make it on our list, but it should have.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments about this? All right. Yes, Tobias.
Yes, I was wondering if you've made outreach to the regional center. I think you may have alluded to that earlier, but you know, there's so many regional center clients, I mean, consumers and their families, especially those that are just coming into the system, really have no clue about transportation and how to get that for their loved ones, especially those who are non-traditional wheelchairs and need extra, support with vehicles. So I'm just wondering if you've made that outreach to the regional center so they can tell their constituents, and maybe some transition fairs and other things that have to do with the population specifically. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We'll definitely add that to our list of groups to reach out to. Thank you.
I had a quick question about your outreach, and I appreciate your effort to freshen up the questions, but there's so much outreach going on, and I do feel it gets a little overwhelming. So I guess my question is, will you be reaching out to the agencies, the transit agencies, about those questions, just so we can kind of give you some feedback on those?
On the survey questions specifically, so we actually built our survey off of a survey we used as part of the last comprehensive transportation plan. So we wanted to keep that pretty consistent.
Okay.
We've revised it and updated it based on current conditions, but we want to be able to do comparisons with the old survey. So we won't be bringing it for wide review, but if you take a look and see like glaring omissions, please let us know.
For sure.
And when we're out in the community, specifically, especially in your communities, you know, if there are specific points you'd like us to make as we're tabling or presenting, please let us know and we can definitely touch on that.
For sure. I notice that sometimes when there's outreach events, there's first an educational piece. So if you're in, you know, certain areas, sometimes it's helpful to have somebody from the agency on hand if you want. The second question was in regards to, I'm glad the survey is available in Spanish. I wanted to just ask more about some of the outreach you're doing. I know you're going to be doing videos and things like that. Will there also be a fairly equal amount of that in Spanish as well?
That's a good question for Ross, our
Okay.
outreach guy. I will check in
Yeah.
with him on that.
That would be
So,
great. Yeah, I think that those tools work really well in both communities. So
Oh, and that brings up another thing. The Health Action Team, if you're familiar with it, they're coming out, they're going to be presenting at Locian next week. Their agenda for action, they did a lot of study of our low scoring HDI parts of areas of need. You guys call them something else, equity priority areas. In mostly, I think they're all in Santa Rosa, but that would be a good group to enlist in community engagement because they're working with our really underserved populations and equity priority areas.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for that. We'll be at Locian as well, tabling. So we'll have information there and we'll make sure to listen closely to their presentation.
Great.
any other questions or comments at this time for this item? Nothing online? All right. Thank you so much. It's wonderful. Let's move to item number 5. This is Department of Transportation adoption of accessibility standards for pedestrian facilities in the public right of way. Stephanie's going to be presenting on this.
Yeah, very brief presentation, everyone. I just wanted to flag this for everyone because it's very relevant to our committee. The Department of Transportation proposed some updates to their regulations under the ADA Act, and these updates will be for accessibility guidelines for pedestrian facilities and the public right of way. This will mainly affect people like you, Yuri, on how the proposed rules will apply to new construction and alterations at transit stops and the public right of way. So this mainly applies to new construction, not existing construction. So there is no added cost for anyone or of these agencies at the moment, but it would have to apply for any new construction. So I highly, highly recommend that you look at the regulations and provide comments. The comment period is going to end on September 23rd at 5 p.m. Eastern time. To send comments, you go to regulations.gov. That's www.regulations.gov. If you want to bypass that and send the comments to me, I can make sure they get in on time. You can send them to my email at stephanie.britt@scta.ca.gov. And I'm sure Drew can provide that for you right there in writing. But yeah, the focus of this is to make the public transportation more accessible for everyone of different mobility options and make sure that bus stops and boarding platforms are up to par with ProWAG standards. So I highly recommend that you look at that and send your comments by September 23rd. Do you have any questions, comments?
You have a sense of what some of the changes are?
It mainly is like accessibility. I don't have like the written regulations right now, but I can send them to you. Yeah. And yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? I definitely appreciate knowing so we can be on the lookout. So definitely give that a look with our bus stop work. All right. And then Stephanie, it's you again with the week without driving. This is item number 6, an informational item.
Yeah, this is a great item. It is the Week Without Driving Challenge. So for one whole week, everyone is encouraged to forego their cars and try to ride transit, ride your bike, walk to work. The challenge was organized by America Walks, and they do this every year. And we as Sonoma County are all joining in on the challenge, and it's very fun and exciting. It is a great way to challenge yourself to kind of visualize what it's like to move around in Sonoma County if you don't have access to a vehicle, maybe you don't have a driver's license, maybe you can't afford a car, or maybe you have disabilities that make it difficult for you to drive a vehicle. So this is an opportunity to put yourself literally in their shoes and experience what it's like to move around the world, and see what challenges are out there. At the end of the challenge, Sonoma Clean Power is hosting a visioning session at the Clean Energy Center. That will be on October 5th. And this is a great opportunity for everyone to reflect on their experiences, how they felt about this mobility challenge, and how we can improve as transit providers, as people in transportation, to make it more accessible for everyone. So highly recommended. And the website for that is weekwithoutdriving.org if you want to learn more about their mission. Do you have any questions, comments?
The only comment I have on this is it is Transit Month, so Seamless Bay Area we coordinated that very similarly. They kind of give you little bonuses for logging your travel. So maybe if you start with that, check out Transit Month and then go to this when it ends. So I think that's a great combo. So wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to participate. So I think it's going to be challenging, but it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Any other questions or comments on that?
My only comment was I find it interesting that Sonoma Clean Power is funding all these transportation initiatives. And I did participate in a focus group that Evie Noir did for Sonoma Clean Power. And I was surprised because the people in my focus group, the issues that were raised were not at all cited in their needs assessment. So to me, just my opinion, it was a little bit like Philip Morris and tobacco control. So just that's a little bit of my experience with Sonoma Clean Power and transportation, at least as it applies to people with disabilities and older adults.
Thank you for feedback.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Anything online? No. Awesome. All right, well, thank you for those two great updates. Now we're going to move to item number 7, and this is transit funding formulas for FY 25-26, the coordinated claim. This is a discussion as well as an action item.
Right, I will take it away here. I put together a presentation to kind of explain the staff report as well as some background information. So this is going to be with regarding, potential action for our fiscal year 26 coordinated claim, which is the next round of the coordinated claim. Before I jump into the details of the coordinated claim and potential action items associated with it, it's important to give some background on the current efforts that are happening for our Marin and Sonoma coordinated transit service. And there's a plan that we're developing. So I want to give a little background on mascots and then jump into the coordinated claim. So mascots is a multi-jurisdictional effort, right? So we're including all 6 transit operators within Marin and Sonoma. You can see the logos there at the bottom of your screen, as well as Transportation Authority Marin, Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and MTC. So this is an effort that looks at coordinated service across primarily the Highway 101 corridor between the 2 counties. So looking at, the high level outcome of mascots, right? So it is a rider focused plan where we're looking at, being operator agnostic or not focusing on, who is the best operator to provide service, but focusing more on the efficiency of the service and how to improve that experience to be able to move regionally around the 2 counties. The plan itself is an effort that will wrap up in spring of 25, but the mascots effort itself, I see ongoing for many years to coordinate between our 2 counties, especially now that SMART is operational. The need for it really revolves around 2 factors. One, that SMART is operational, and the other is that travel patterns have changed since the pandemic. So we have not done that comprehensive structural analysis of the 101 corridor, since either one of those events have happened and either one of those events would justify such a study. Purpose, improve service efficiency and effectiveness across the Highway 101 corridor to better serve existing and future transit customers. And then there's some key questions listed there on this PowerPoint presentation that'll be available to the entire committee. And you can also expect, more mascots updates to come to the committee in the future. This is just to get a little bit into the timeline of what's happening. So the consultant has been hired and they're working on a subcommittee of the mascots group that's being run by the planners to look at existing conditions, develop solutions, and then essentially, document what those solutions would look like and how different solutions would have, the impacts of what those solutions would have. February 25 is a tentative date. And, you can expect something back to this committee in the spring of 25 that could potentially inform future coordinated claims. With regard to the process wise, it really is a technical focus at first. There'll be some subcommittee updates from a group of elected officials that are the two MTC commissioners, as well as our chair, Linda Hopkins. But there will be opportunities for additional feedback once some potential recommendations come out in the spring. Moving from mascots, and that was meant to be very high level, not going into details, just to make you aware of the plan that's moving forward. Moving into our transit funding for fiscal year 26, our coordinated claim, right? As this committee's aware, there is a total of 6 different operators that receive funding from that claim. Their logos are listed here, where we have our 3 local bus operators and then our 2 regional operators, which are Golden Gate and Smart. The coordinated claim funds that we're going to talk about today are TDA, STA, and LC-TOP. So a reminder of those acronyms and kind of where they come from is what I'm going to cover right now, right? So TDA is your Transportation Development Act funds. That's a 1/4 cent sales tax, similar to our 1/4 cent Go Sonoma sales tax, but different in that it's statewide and 100% of it goes to transit. It generates approximately $30 million a year, is at the discretion of the SCTA board, with the exception of 25% of those TDA funds that are required to go to Golden Gate Transit to operate bus service. That's based on a 1996 resolution that MTC requires agreement between all the bus operators to be able to change that agreement, although MTC does retain the authority to change it on their own accord if they were to take that up. The next funding source is STA, so that's State Transit Assistance. That is a diesel excise tax or a fuel tax. Those funds are at the discretion of SCTA that have been delegated to us from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. And we do have a funding formula that's performance-based that allows SMART to compete for those funds on a performance basis up to 20% of the total amount. And then the remaining amount is distributed by population, service area population. That total amount is about $10 million in funding each year. The last is LC-TOP, or Low Carbon Transit Operations Program. This program's just over $1 million. It's fairly new. It's associated with the cap and trade program at the state and generates a little over $1 million that's distributed based on SCTA board action, distributed between just our 3 local bus operators. Moving on to sum up all those totals, you get to a little over $41 million in funding. And to look at the fiscal year 25 funding allocations, this is what they look like. Golden Gate Transit got $7.4 million. So that's based on that required 25% set aside of the TDA funds. SMART, based on the performance formula in STA, generated just short of $1 million. And the remaining funds went to our local bus operators to be able to operate Sonoma County Transit, Santa Rosa City Bus, as well as Petaluma Transit. As we're advancing the mascot study and looking at the efficiency of the system, we felt it was important to point out the cost of bus service. So these are fiscal year 22 numbers, which are the latest numbers latest audited numbers we were able to get, which essentially show Golden Gate Transit's operations are over $400 per hour for them to operate their bus. This has nothing to do with the ferry, it's only bus operations. And then the Marin Transit, as well as our 3 local Sonoma County bus operators, they're all around $150 an hour. So Golden Gate is well over twice the cost to operate their bus service for what we're receiving in this county. The alternatives for moving forward with the fiscal year 25-26 coordinated claim would be to, one, essentially defer it. Say, let's wait for the mascot study. Let's see what happens with our regional transportation measure that MTC is continuing to consider, see what happens, and take that knowledge, learn from the mascot study and what's happening with other potential fund sources that would come to Sonoma County transit operators, and defer for another year. We've already deferred once. This would be to defer again to fiscal year 27 coordinated claim. The other option would be to go with a dynamic formula. A dynamic formula is what's used in Marin. This essentially rewards the operators for how much service they provide. So essentially, they need to leverage other fund sources to be able to provide service, which then will generate additional revenue that would be a reward or a competitive type process for the coordinated claim fundings within Sonoma County. And then the last one would be to revise that fixed percentage, right? So this would be the simplest, it would be the most consistent, non-dynamic change where you'd say, instead of having Golden Gate get 25% off the top, let's look at a reduced number and make sure that we're only taking Golden Gate funds from Golden Gate serving jurisdictions. So the recommendation from our local transit operators was to take 22% just from Golden Gate serving jurisdictions. So you would exclude Sebastopol, Sebastopol, Sonoma, Windsor, Healdsburg, and Cloverdale, right? So they would not have their TDA share, population share, have to go to Golden Gate. And then by doing 22% of just those jurisdictions from Santa Rosa South along the 101 corridor, you essentially come up with a 19%. So it'd be a reduction from 25% of the total TDA to 19% of the TDA is another recommendation that's being considered. I wanted to show you what these potential options would look like funding wise, right? And of course, for the dynamic formula, it depends on the year of ridership that you look at, right? So you got fiscal year 19, that's pre-pandemic numbers. In pre-pandemic numbers, if you were to apply Marin's formula in Sonoma County, Golden Gate would actually get another $1.7 million. So they would compete very well in a pre-pandemic situation, getting more than what the percentage they're getting now. But because their revenue service and passengers in Sonoma County have dropped by more than half since the pandemic, you can see that in fiscal year 22 ridership numbers, they would have to give back 1.4 million, or in fiscal year 24 ridership numbers, it would be give back over $2 million. Now, those funds would primarily go back to our local operators, but in a dynamic formula, it would go to our local operators as well as SMART for the numbers that you can see on the screen. Looking at the static formula, right? So the static formula essentially is looking at just the TDA fund sources, not all fund sources like the Marin dynamic formula. And it is essentially taking that percentage from the Golden Gate serving jurisdictions, which gives the committee and the policymakers options as to, how much of a cut should we take to that 7.4 million, which this gives options between just less than $1 million, a little over 2 million, depending on the percentage that is applied to this fixed formula update. On September 3rd, our transit ad hoc came to consensus on the matter of what they would like to see in the long term. They really would like to see a dynamic formula that changes with the level of service that's provided. So if the mascot study makes certain recommendations for Golden Gate to ramp up or Golden Gate to ramp down, or one of our local bus operators to take a route, that those revenue hours and passengers, which are the two components of a dynamic formula, would allow additional funding to flow to those operators providing the service. And they also see that to come up with that formula, you really need the mascot study to be completed. So we need some time to complete that study and come up with that long-term solution. But the action item today that's being posed to this committee and going through various committees prior to going to the board in October is, should we revisit that resolution that gives 25% to TDA now, or should we defer it for another year? With regard to doing it now for the fiscal year 26 coordinated claim, based on informal board discussion earlier this month, they were very clear they wanted to see that. At the Transit Technical Advisory Committee, it was very clear they wanted to see action as well. With regard to the deferral, Golden Gate is the one who really is pushing for a deferral and does not want to see action now. They do not want a two-step process because we essentially would need a two-step process to move forward now because we don't know what the long-term solution is. Next steps on our fiscal year 26 coordinated claims. So we will take this item to our board in October for them to have action. And then, if their action is, aligns with the TTAC, it would be to, amend that agreement now. MTC may or may not act on that. MTC's resolution states that, per attachment A of the resolution, which is included in your packet, they want consensus amongst all the operators as to any changes to the formula. But MTC also has a second whereas as part of that resolution where they retain the authority to amend that resolution at their discretion. But whether they would take it to their board or not is questionable. And then after that, we will be back to the SCTA board in April of 25. It'll come to this committee in the spring of next year with regard to that fiscal year 26 coordinated claim. And then I do just want to emphasize that, the mascots effort will continue regardless of what happens with our coordinated claim. We are seeking a long-term formula, a long-term solution to this effort, regardless of whether there's a near-term or interim step. And there's been discussion on that between 1 and 4 years. There's a interest in doing it very soon. The question is once the mascot study comes out, is everyone going to agree with it and then implement it? Once it's implemented, is it going to be implemented exactly how it was planned the first time, or is there going to be adjustments? The 4 years is on the longer end where you'd have a couple years of implementation and then you need another year to get that data to actually come up with a long-term recommended solution. The 1 year is you're making recommendations purely on the plan itself and not the implementation of the plan. So with that, I would just leave it with this committee for input on an interim solution sooner versus waiting for a year, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
That was a great overview. Thank you so much. But I'm sure there's questions. So this would be the opportunity to ask questions, especially if there were aspects you didn't understand. This is an opportunity for clarity. So we understand what we're discussing.
I have a question, not being a transit operator and finding it all very confusing, and not knowing what this mascots is. The $412 revenue hour versus the $150, is that the same formula? Are the same components going into that revenue hour? Are we comparing apples to apples, or what goes into that revenue hour?
Sure. So there's two different things, right? So first off, there's a dynamic formula that relies on revenue hours and passengers. So you essentially look at like Golden Gate. Golden Gate used to operate over 100,000 revenue hours in the county. Now they operate around 50,000 revenue hours per year in the county. Then you take that and you compare it to passengers, and you have the combination of their revenue hours and their passengers compared to the other transit operators. That comes up with what percentage of the total coordinated claim they could get in a dynamic formula. Then totally separate from any sort of formula calculations is just what it costs to operate the bus system. So the cost of Golden Gate's total cost of operating those buses, that's where that 412 comes from. There is nothing that goes into either the fixed formula or the dynamic formula that takes into account that cost of revenue service. But it is something we are looking at with regard to what an appropriate subsidy would be, right? So and I'll give you a really good example of this is that if one of our local transit operators was to be operating service in Sonoma County right now, the same service that Golden Gate operates, the 7.4 million would be more than enough money. There'd be money left over, right? But because it costs so much to operate their buses, there's still a subsidy coming from primarily, I believe, bridge tolls, right? So Golden Gate bridge tolls go along and subsidize that service. So one is revenue hours is what we use for the formula, and then the cost per hour of revenue service is that actual cost of the dollars to operate the bus, the driver and the fuel.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments on this?
I know that our agency has been talking with you guys about it. I'm not up to date on exactly what our stance is on it, so anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your board acted, your GM acted at the Transit Technical Advisory Committee very clearly. We want action now. We don't want to wait. And
Thank
so
you.
did your
Yeah,
GM
100%.
and so did well, actually, no, yours wasn't here. You were here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we also were leaning toward the fixed route or the fixed scenario with the 22%. And I'm not sure if we nailed down a year or how many years, but I think a couple of years was preferred.
But looking at action now,
And looking at action now.
yes. And Petaluma Transit is also looking for action now because we're not making a decision on what that action is. It's just whether or not we're going to hold for a year to revisit or move now. That's the question. Any other questions or comments? Yes, please.
Have they kind of, the towns are gonna be moved by the funding, is that their concern that they do come to?
Yeah, so Golden Gate recognizes they have a substantial reduction in service. And they acknowledge that there's going to be some reduction in their funding. They like the 1996 agreement and the reliability associated with it, right? Where you know, regardless of what you do, you're going to get this dollar amount. What they don't want to do is they don't want to have this conversation multiple times with their board, right? Coming to them saying that, you know, we need to move forward with this, say, fixed percentage cut, and then have another discussion, you know, a year, 2 years, 4 years down the road and have that same discussion about what is the long-term solution. They want a one-step process that will get them there. Our board seems opposed to that because they deferred for 1 year already. And if they were to defer again this year, then there's no guarantee that come a year from now, we're having the same conversation with Golden Gate and they're in the same spot saying, oh no, we need to defer another year. So there's no guarantee of it. And there's a desire to put MTC more on formal notice about, you know, a need to resolve this. With regard to the core of your question, though, I think that I'm hearing that comes up quite a bit is that what would actually happen to Golden Gate's service, right? So if we were to say, take away $1 million or take away $2 million a year, how would Golden Gate react to that? They have not answered that question directly. I will say that their bus transit annual budget for the entire operation between Marin and Sonoma is about $90 million. So, you know, percentage wise, we're talking about, you know, 1, 2, a little more than 2% of their total budget that would be impacted if we were to take away $2 million. So there's a relatively small impact to the entire amount of funding, but it will have some impact for sure.
Any other questions that can be answered either by James or by any of the transit agencies in the room? Okay. I think this is a really important matter. Whenever I think of these different committees we have, we're representing the people we represent, right? You know, and we come to it, there's a lot of pieces, but I think thinking about those who we represent, that's kind of the main focus. So how do we do this vote? Because it's one thing or another.
So we're looking for one of the committee members to make a motion to either defer or a motion to move forward with a request to amend the TDA or amend the fiscal year 26 coordinated claim.
And as chair, I can't.
I'll make a motion to move forward with amending the fiscal year 26 coordinated claim with fixed route percentage to Golden Gate at 22% for 2 years.
Do I have a second?
I feel like I need to abstain because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, I'll second.
I'm also going to abstain because I'm not the person involved in the mascots from my agency.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm saying for now too.
Okay. So we move for Drew's counting. Can I?
Well, these were abstentions, right?
Yeah.
I think we can record the vote because we have a quorum here. It's just that there's abstentions, right? So it would pass under some amount of yeses and then 0 no's that I've heard, or you should do the call, right?
Yeah.
So that's seeing our potential 3 ayes, 3 abstentions with 6 committee members here. Is that correct? Yeah.
So we still call for a vote though? Oh, we have a comment? Did we have a comment though? Before?
Yeah, I'm not sure about a committee member.
What is your name?
Pardon? I'm Angela Conti.
Yes.
Just public.
Public comment.
Yeah, maybe. We haven't heard yet. Not yet, probably next week, we will issue an estimate.
Are you one of the, are you one of the interested people in joining from recently?
I'm not sure because I thought the last message I got was that I was.
Okay, let's loop back in after the meeting then. Yeah.
All right.
So on a roll call, we'll go to Sonoma County Transit,
Yes.
Disability Services and Legal Center,
Abstain.
Area Agency on Aging,
Abstain.
Santa Rosa City Bus,
Yes.
Petaluma Transit,
Yes.
Golden Transit.
Abstain.
So can we get Angela's vote just in case she is a committee member and we can confirm that after, right?
I was told that I'm not.
Right.
That's not what.
So to clarify, we're just making a decision on whether or not to defer for a year or to take action now, but what that action might be is not being determined at this point. Correct, James?
That was part of my motion. It was.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I only asked for what
That.
you said, but he made a motion that was more detailed. And that's exactly what happened at TTAC too, is that we were just looking for the basis of let's act on this now, and then we're gonna, figure it out based on further meetings and discussion. But the
And these-
motion was,
these are
the
just
motion
a-
was very clear. It
These
was-
are just advisory bodies that are making a recommendation to.
Right.
I don't have, and I should clarify, I don't have a clear stance on whether we're interested, whether city buses been interested in which model, which percentage model.
The fixed percentage, 22%.
Is that what?
That's what Rachel agreed with.
Okay.
The Transit TAC.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in terms of it just deferment or not, then no.
You'd like to move forward.
So should we amend So that we're only asking for whether or not to defer or whether or not to make action
I
now.
propose we separate the.
Yes,
Proposal, or, proposals in order to.
Friendly amendment.
Okay, so,
friendly
so
amendment.
that motion failed and you're making a new motion
Or a friendly amendment.
or amending the motion.
A friendly amendment.
So should we retake it? Let's take it in two parts.
It's like a vote to be.
Right, okay.
We'll follow Stephen saying that motion failed and we'll offer a new one.
Great. So Stephen, do you want to restate an amendment or?
You can make a new
Okay,
motion.
so I'll make a new amendment or a new proposal that we move the proposal is to move forward with the adjustment to the
Fiscal year
coordinated
26
claim,
coordinated.
yeah, for in the near term rather than long term. Rather than delaying it. That's my proposal.
And can I second that as chair? I know. It's,
General chairs don't.
yeah, I know. That's why I'm,
I'll make a second.
thank you. All right.
So County Transit.
Can you repeat what the motion was?
The motion is to not delay
Move forward.
adjustment coordinated claim.
With the 26th amendment of the 26th coordinated claim.
Mhm.
Yes.
Disability Services and Legal Center,
Abstain for now.
Area Agency on Aging,
I'm same, I'm still confused.
City Bus,
Yes.
Petaluma Transit.
Yes.
Patriots.
Abstain.
Yes. So we see that motion carrying
Mhm.
4 ayes, 3 abstentions.
That was exciting.
Motion approved. This is why this committee
And then
matters.
before we
see?
do the second, because you said you're still confused.
Yeah.
Is there something that we can do for discussion wise to not have you just?
Well, there's move forward and defer, move forward with looking at services.
I think with more with, we want to make sure that everyone here has as much information as they need so that when this, especially because this conversation isn't ending, right? We're going to continue with this so that in the meantime, or even now, there can be clarifying questions. And it doesn't have to be right now. Maybe it's something we return to or whatever support might be needed so folks understand it. Because this is complicated information for those not in transit.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't presented with this MOTS or whatever this study is, and I'm not familiar with what the study is and does and seeks to do, so I feel uneducated to make a vote.
Oh, and it's mascots.
I think I actually just, I mean,
Yeah.
this may be a little bit out of order, but I think we have what we need based on
Yes.
the reaction to both of those motions, right? So I think we're good.
Yeah, and I think just in moving forward, if you want more, we can maybe have a presentation more thoroughly in the future for future actions on this.
That would be helpful.
Mhm.
It's very confusing even for those of us that have been around for several years, so. Go back.
Definitely complex. Thank you.
All right, that motion has been approved. Let's move on to item number 8. This is roundtable updates and discussion, and we'll start with transit, paratransit operators. We'll start with City Bus.
So not a lot going on, or maybe a lot going on. I don't know which way. We have a few vehicles arriving in the next few months for our Oakmont, one for our Oakmont service and another cutaway for our fixed route service. So we're just working through that. We continue to do the 1-seat rides on paratransit. We're at about 80% of pre-pandemic paratransit service or ridership. We started in July. We have a new contract with our paratransit operator, and so they're doing both the paratransit operations as well as the paratransit eligibility. That's MV that's doing that work. On the fixed route side, city buses redoing the roadbed at the transit mall. So we have a temporary roadbed, we have, temporary transit mall on First Street in front of City Hall, and that's moved, that transition went fairly smoothly, and that we expect to be back into the permanent transit mall sometime around the 1st of November. Let's see. City buses, working with some of the bike and walk to school programs, and we're doing, for walking audits at some of the school sites. So that's something new that we're engaging in. And on fixed route side, we expect to have a new schedule out sometime in October, just filling in some of the gaps and kind of taking advantage of the additional drivers that we have available. And I think that's it. I did look, just real quick, I did look at that accessibility updates, and it sounds like it's much more web-based, kind of information-based. That's all I got.
Sonoma County Transit.
We continue to make progress on our new charging facility. We'll have 19 stations within, excuse me, within the next couple of months. They'll wrap it up. Otherwise, our ridership just continues to increase pre-pandemic. I don't have any percentages or numbers for you. That's about it.
All right. Golden Gate.
Not a lot to report from us either. British traffic continues to be at about 85% of what it was pre-pandemic. Bus and ferry are both ranging somewhere between 40 and 60. It depends. Paratransit's about 50% of what it was pre-pandemic, and looking at that, a lot of it has to do with closures when it comes to the various day programs and things that we used to serve. We used to do a lot with Lifelong Medical and Novato, things like that. And we're seeing a big impact with that. So yeah, that's all from me.
All right. I'll do the update for Petaluma Transit. Sorry, make sure there's no transit missing. Petaluma Transit, we have a lot of exciting things happening. As you know, we went fare free starting July 1st. That's going very well. You never know what's going to happen, especially when paratransit service becomes free. I will say the applications have gotten stacked pretty high on my desk, but that's great. That's great news. In terms of our ridership, we are up. We have surpassed on fixed route our pre-pandemic levels. Paratransit's getting right up there, but not quite there. But we're definitely seeing an increase in fare free has helped. We are expecting 4 electric buses in February, March. Also, Luma Go, which is our micro transit, is scheduled to launch September 30th. So I put these, thank you, sorry, I didn't take one for myself. These rat cards, it will operate within the, oh, and there it is on the screen. You're so awesome. So this is basically on-demand service. You use a smartphone app, or you can call in and you request a ride and we come to you. It's a 1-year pilot project operating about 2-mile zone. If you can bring up the zone, thank you so much since you have it. There's the zone. That doesn't give you the best sense, but kind of you can see that's like the smart stations in between, McDowell's, that red line. So it's really operating within the city center, the downtown area. Again, as a pilot to see what the interest is. There's no eligibility requirement. It's free. You just need to call or request a ride on your phone. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible. There are no bus stops, at least not real ones. They're all virtual bus stops about every 300 feet. So it is a paratransit vehicle. So it is wheelchair equipped. It will be operated by MV. So we have our MV drivers and vehicles. It is a big green wrap, so you can't miss it. And we're doing outreach to several senior living facilities, community groups for the first week of launch, but we're open to coming to any community groups within Petaluma who are interested in the service, or other transit agencies who are interested in the way we're operating that service. That's what I have for Petaluma Transit. Now we'll move to, I think I got everybody, mobility partner updates. We'll start here in the room.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way. I hope that gets replicated elsewhere.
Thank you.
Just the only update I have is last week, the Board of Supervisors approved our local Sonoma County Master Plan for Aging. So it's a 10-year plan that looks at certain goals for our community to help older adults age in place. We have housing, health, transportation, caregiving, economic stability, and I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, wellness, equity, and inclusion. Those are the 6 goal areas that we'll be focused on. So more to come on that. And I think that's it for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank Gary for meeting with us, discuss safety concerns at Transit Mall, just increasing presence of security there and, letting the community was there that they have something well on it for safety. And happy to hear about the, limit goal. One thing I would say is I know some of our consumers that we deal with don't have smartphones, so trying to get that unmet need figured out so that they can do it. I'm glad the fare free program is going well. And then internally, here at DSSC we have a new program, that's a benefits enrollment program. So that way, if you have anyone who needs Medicare, initial applications, as well as CalFresh, or even reheat applications, we can all help with that. So that's the new program that we are having up and looking forward to getting that.
It's a great service. Great, thank you.
Happy to hear about the master plan aging getting adopted.
Lots of exciting stuff. Jamie?
Okay, first time joining, so thanks for having me. I'm here representing Council on Aging for those that didn't hear from before. So really here to just learn as much as I can and I guess promote or advocate for our homebound seniors and our people living with dementia and their caregivers. So being that voice here at the table to
Apologies to
That's been
those.
something I said.
Yeah, no, they all just left the room. No, that's great.
Just say it all over again.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Can we have any more updates for those online? Is Tobias no longer with us in this chat?
Sorry, we were frozen out for a while. I don't know if everybody else experienced that as well, but so I just we just got back in again. So can you repeat kind of what you were going over right before then?
I think it was Jamie was I saw it go out. Sorry, Jamie, do you mind reintroducing yourself?
I do want to hear this again. Is that good? Okay, I'm here representing Council on Aging, in particular being a voice advocate, supporter of really our homebound seniors through our Meals on Wheels program and our people that we serve with dementia and their caregivers. We do currently have needs around accessibility, particularly to our adult day programs throughout the county. Did I get it right?
Nudge, nudge.
It was.
And then the nudge over here. 'Cause you did say
Great
something
job.
about
See,
that.
we do this to everyone who's new. We make them say it twice.
To be sure if I'm
Thank you.
really telling the truth or not.
All right, Tobias?
Thank you guys so much. A little bit from what we're doing our regular clinics for parents and children that are just entering into the education system. So helping them with their special education IEP clinics. We do that every month here now at our regional office in Vallejo. And also, if you go to our website, State Council on Developmental Disabilities, we always have statewide trainings that are going on all the time, having to do with transportation, community living, all kinds of different subjects for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So just wanted to put that out there. And also, I'd love to see more transportation representation at some of our transition fairs. We have lots of different also Disability Services and Legal Center puts on events as well. And we'd like to have more representation of transportation options for people in our communities. So I just wanted to put that out there, and thank you all for having me.
That's great. And I'm wondering if Tobias, you can send those to staff, and she'd be great about getting those out to us. So if it's an applicable outreach, we can be there to support for sure. Right. And we have Jan, who's a new member. You don't have to speak, but I like to make sure folks.
Hi, yes, my name is Jan Schiller, and I represent both in-home support services and our AFN committee. And for our AFN committee, we're working on a project to how to help people with disabilities to get to a cooling center. And right now, the Department of Emergency Services has been putting up tents instead of going to a certain location. And then the people are not able to get a ride with Paratransit to a tent. It's not an exact location or a building. So there's a model in Windsor where they have made the senior center into a cooling center, and then they have a free bus that takes people to the senior center that provides that's also a cooling center for them. So we're trying to figure that out, and that's why I'm here to see if we could possibly work together to find a solution for that, and perhaps it might help other areas in our Bay Area. Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to be here and see the wonderful plans that you have and all the hard work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I think Stephanie's a great resource to let us know, the transit agencies, at least what we can do, and more specifically, get you the resources you need. All right, we have our member / public, but I think
Say member.
member. Let's see.
Angela?
Angela? Yeah.
President of Santa Rosa. And I got picked up, I think, through Kathleen.
Nice. Okay, great.
Through LADA, which is the local aging and disability action plan advisory committee. And I'm also on the Santa Rosa Housing Authority committee.
Awesome. And well, we're glad to have you. And this is usually the opportunity for updates. So now you kind of know the format for next time. All right. If there are future agenda topics going to item 9, unless there are questions, I know everybody's running out of time here. We're going to work on the State Master Plan for Aging, Petaluma Age Friendly Action Plan, Education Campaign on Fairs. Any other business before we adjourn?
I have 2 updates, very quick. For Go Sonoma, our commuter program, we have Give Transit a Try challenge. So everyone that logs a transit trip every week for the month of, what month is it? September. If you log at least 1 trip every week, you're entered into a raffle and you can win $100 for giving transit a try. So I highly recommend you joining. We're now in week 2 and a lot of train riders are definitely eligible for it right now. They've been logging in their trips. And finally, for our bike share program with Drop Mobility, the bikes are here, which is really exciting. So yeah, we're still chugging along on that, and that's coming soon. Those are my updates.
Are they in Sonoma County or?
They're in Rohnert Park. Yeah.
So they're out in the street, are they being stored?
No, they're in a
Okay.
warehouse right now getting their brands on them.
He was about to grab one.
I want to see.
I know.
They're
right?
coming.
So many years.
They're in the warehouse right now. They're getting their branding put on, so it's getting real.
It's getting
Yeah,
real.
yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Drop mobility.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you for a very informative meeting. With that, we are adjourned.
That's